Mildly same vein as the last episode, only here instead of, and apparently in addition to talking about how some people get offended by comedy, we're gonna talk about how some people not only don't understand comedy, but fail to even recognize when it's happening in front of their blank fucking faces. This may sound derivative of common knowledge, but it honestly never registered with me that there were people in this world functionally immune to comedy, not until a recent video of mine. For context, I made a video about Super Mario Odyssey, which is a Mario game where you collect moons by completing challenges or doing different things or whatever. So I made a video called 4 Extremely Offensive Moons in Super Mario Odyssey, because while the game is obviously not offensive in the slightest, there were some instances I saw where I was like, if somebody was really truly determined to get offended at this, I'm sure they could succeed. As is true with anything that exists in the world. If people try their hardest, they can conjure marginalization and microaggressions out of thin air like PC magicians. Like there's a moon you can only get by having Mario, who is an Italian, change his costume and dress up in a poncho and sombrero to fit the Spanish theme of the kingdom he's currently in. I could just hear the muffled screams of cultural appropriation from some pale white blogger who thinks getting a tan is cultural appropriation of the skin. So I saw an opportunity for satire and made a video where I pretended to be offended by various inoffensive circumstances, drawing controversies out of nothing, which is so easy to do that it kind of unnerved me. That 5-minute script was done in half an hour of me motoring through perceived injustice after perceived injustice. And as you might expect, some people took me seriously. In this video, I called myself a white single mom. I said if my son wore a poncho on Halloween, I'd be horrified that he would dress up as an Indian. I said depictions of a dinosaur eating apples without gaining weight would make morbidly obese children hang themselves, among dozens of other examples that need proper context to be truly appreciated. I said all of that, and still the comment section is sparsely populated with, "Is this a joke?" or "typical liberal snowflakes make me sick." These Helen fucking Kellers watch YouTube videos with their eyes and ears closed and can't identify what has just happened. They literally cannot process what they've just bore witness to, so they carry on like it's part of the straight truth reality that's all they know, and respond seriously. It wasn't until I made that video that the point hammered home for me that some people, much like how those with certain developmental disorders can't read social cues, can't read jokes. It doesn't register. You tell jokes in front of them, and they stare at you like, why are you just telling me all these weird statements in a row? Specifically when you're dabbling in a less straightforward form of comedy like satire, people just straight up don't register that shit. Like, I can only tell if it's jokes if a studio audience tells me when to laugh. This person is acting stupid, so therefore he must be stupid and not self-aware at all. I pinned my own comment on that video musing about how people don't get it, and someone replied with, "You're just not that funny." Nope, you're just not that perceptive. Now, a show like South Park has built up a reputation for being satirical over the decades, so most people are going to understand that right off the bat, even if they still don't get it because they're dummies. But if you walk into a content creator's channel completely blind, maybe it's less obvious what they've got going on, so here's a roadmap for how to tell if the video you're watching is satirical in nature. Number 1, listen to see if, anywhere in the video, a man with a deep voice refers to himself as an offended single mother. If he does, you've got yourself a joke. Number 2, subscribe to that man because he is a comedy genius, and maybe you can learn something about how to ingest funny things. This seems like a problem with children at the root of it. Like, kids watch a video because Mario is in it, and then this adult meta commentary kicks in, and they're like, "Mom never told me about this part of the internet, I don't like it." But no, I see profile pictures of grown-ass men who definitely start their first Tinder message by saying, "Sup, girl," and nothing more. They come on my channel and act like it's in a foreign language, and then they lash out because they don't understand words more sophisticated than sup and girl. Anyway, major topic shift. Mark Anthony Condit, the serial bomber in Austin, set off 5 bombs that killed 2 people and injured a bunch more. And headlines can't talk about anything other than how sympathetic he is because he's white and had a family. Sheriffs going on record calling him a challenged young man, and oh how sad it is that he was crying out for help in this way. He blew himself up when police closed in. Bomber to the end. So tragic. Oh my god, my heart goes out to him. What a troubled, innocent boy. Even though the dude made a video video describing how he felt no remorse for what he did, but no, yeah, how devastating that we lost such a good guy who was only guilty of being misguided. Now, this isn't a new debacle where black and brown killers and even victims are portrayed as monsters while white mass murderers are billed as the consequences of a cruel, cruel world who never had a chance. I read a headline where Mark Anthony Condit was referred to as a nerdy guy, part of a God-fearing family. News outlets are literally typing up this dude's online dating profile after he exploded several people. Mark Anthony Condit enjoys shredding flesh with shrapnel, piercing vital organs with nails and debris, and he's single! If he wasn't dead, he'd have a fan club. Even the photos they circulate of him would not look out of place on OkCupid, all smiley and non-murdery. That's on purpose, too. Now, I do want to address common stances against this type of coverage. There are people out there calling him a terrorist, but he never expressed any hatred towards the people he killed, nor any motivation to incite fear or discourse. There's plenty of white terrorists that are never referred to as such. Dylan Roof was a terrorist, but nobody called him that because he looked like a Dr. Seuss character. I wouldn't call Mark Anthony Condit a terrorist because there are no terrorist motives at play, no agenda. He had passionate far-right political views, I guess, but that didn't have anything to do with what he did. When you kill people for an agenda, that agenda is at the top of your list of things to get across to people. And this dude recorded a 28-minute video hours before his death that said jack about any agenda. There was no agenda, at least none that would qualify as a terrorist motivation. Kumail Nanjiani tweeted about how him being able to kill people and then be referred to as challenged was the highest form of white privilege. But it's like, okay, he's dead though. Any privilege you may have stops with your heart. Clearly there's a white bias in this type of thing, but your privilege quits being a benefit after you blow yourself up. If he was alive and getting this coverage, then by all means, especially if he wound up with a light sentence. But none of this is affecting his flaky, scattered corpse now, so it's not really his privilege, is it? Hey, what's one of the benefits of being white? Well, after you die, stop. Irrelevant. You're dead. Being remembered as less of a psychopath is not a privilege unless you're planning on coming back to life someday and throwing a baller welcome home party. But this does also happen with people who commit mass atrocity and live, so to that end, this type of sympathetic coverage needs to stop. Another headline read, Austin bomber frustrated with his life, authorities say. Who the fuck cares? As an aside, who is surprised by this revealing information? Why don't you run the next headline? Murderer wanted to murder people, authorities say. Well, if the authorities said it, it must be worth reporting. The news never should have become a business, because the primary side effect of that transition is filler garbage like this, padding out slow days. Not only does the media have a glorification problem with psychos who do what they do precisely for that reason, they get a head start on writing up every killer's bestseller biography by digging 10 times deeper than they would need to if their only goal was to report relevant shit we should be aware of with no regard for ratings. The news has ratings. That concept alone is ridiculous. This network tells us what we need to know better than this network because they make it sexy and sensational and I want to be hooked. The marketing strategy is, if the audience is scared, they'll tune in. Fear-mongering reels people in who are afraid of missing something important, and humanizing killers by exposing their whole backstories for weeks plants seeds of distrust and doubt in people's minds, like, whoa, Mark Anthony Condit was nerdy. I know people that are nerdy. Could they all be serial bombers too? So you stick around to find out more useless trash you tell yourself you'll be able to implement in your own life, and the news networks rake it in. Whatever respectable institution they started as is long gone. Even the big stories turn into fluff pieces over time as they over-report nonsense to prevent us from forgetting the people we should be forgetting as soon as possible. It's dumb. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.